Another dose of decisions. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in, and is another Trump about to join the president-elect in D.C. That's Topping the Hill on NewsNation tonight.
I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine. I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. certainly sounded confident in the immediate aftermath of Donald Trump's presidential win. And tonight, the president-elect says the former Democratic presidential candidate is his choice to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation, and that is potentially not the only move to Washington on the horizon. The Florida Senator Rick Scott now starting to make the case for Laura Trump to be his colleague in the United States Senate. Major names flying all over the place, and that includes Jamie Dimon, the president-elect, saying today that Wall Street's biggest and most famous banker won't be joining his administration. News all over the place. We begin tonight with our Julia Manchester, national political reporter for TheHill.com. Hello, Julia.
Good to see you, Blake.
Good to see you. RFK Jr., the big news of the day. You love him or you hate him,
yeah.
Right? We're not here to change minds or any of that. In Washington, the conversation about can he be confirmed? What are you hearing, and where do you think that stands?
Look, a lot of this comes down to Senators Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and also Bill Cassidy, who, of course, is a part of that Senate Health Committee. We are definitely going to be watching those three. And I think for a lot of these confirmation hearings, we're going to be watching Murkowski and Collins, two moderates in particular. Cassidy
said he championed issues like healthy foods and greater transparency. I look forward to learning more about other policy positions and how they will support a conservative, pro-American agenda. RFK Jr. is a Kennedy. And so that part caught my attention.
He is a Kennedy and ran as a Democrat. This presidential cycle. What I also thought was interesting is we've heard a lot of backlash from Democrats, maybe some Republicans, but mostly Democrats. But the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, tweeting out praise, really, for RFK, saying, don't judge him yet. Let's hear what he has to say. He likes his initiatives on some policies like healthy foods, et cetera. But certainly a little shocking to hear that from Polis.
Laura Trump, what's going on? You got an open Senate seat because of Marco Rubio going to the State Department. Rick Scott saying, why not Laura Trump? So the idea or the prospect of Rubio leaving the Senate has set off dominoes in the state of Florida. We've heard a number of scenarios floated, including DeSantis appointing his own chief of staff, the attorney general, the lieutenant governor, or even stepping down and appointing himself. That seems unlikely right now. But over the course of the past week, we've seen Laura Trump's name slowly floated. We heard it from Katie Britt. We heard it from Lindsey Graham. But now Senator Rick Scott from Florida, essentially, pushing for that very publicly. Online.
Yeah, we know that DeSantis is in Italy right now. There has not, as of now, from what I understand, there has not been a call made. But I think his team has been sort of expecting this pressure campaign as we've seen her name floated continuously.
Julie Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Lots of intrigue. Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
Appreciate it. All right. Live look right now across the Intercoastal at Mar-a-Lago transition headquarters. Not only are cabinet members, administration officials being named, interviewed, and debated, but so too are potential policies of the incoming Trump administration. Tonight, Reuters is reporting the Trump team is planning to get rid of the tax credit for electric vehicles. Now, that credit is up to $7,500 and could go when the tax code is likely to be rewritten in 2025. Out on the campaign trail, then candidate Trump made it known that he has some serious reservations about EVs.
I will cancel Kamala's insane electric vehicle mandate. And I will make interest on car loans fully tax deductible.
Now, Wall Street reacted with a different kind of red, I guess you could say today. Tesla down more than 5% on the news. Rivian, the electric vehicle maker, as well, down 14% today. Joining me now is the congressman from the state of North Carolina, Greg Murphy. He is a key Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee, which will be the group that is tasked with rewriting the tax code. Hello, Congressman. Thank you for being here.
Nice to see you.
Appreciate it. So the news coming, or at least being reported by Reuters, that this tax credit is going to go. Your group is going to be the one writing the tax code. Get rid of it?
I think so, because
Why?
if you look at Blake, the whole idea, I think, of the Biden administration for EVs was to cut emissions. Great. But you don't have to make the wealthy are the ones the benefactors for this. If you look at, you dissect where the tax credit went, it went to primarily folks who could afford the cars without the tax credit. And to the tune, I believe it's now been calculated up to about $390 billion over the next decade. It's not needed. It's costly to the American taxpayer, and we need to move on for other forms of energy production.
Here's what Elon Musk said on Tesla's conference call earlier this year over the summer about the possibility of these credits going and what that would mean. He said, I guess there would be some impact, but I think it would be devastating for our competitors and for Tesla slightly. But long term, this actually helps Tesla. He's saying there, you saw the numbers for Rivian, that a company like Tesla could withstand that, but essentially suggesting maybe some in Detroit and others might not be able to withstand if those credits go.
Yeah, but the American taxpayer and the federal government is not in the business of picking winners and losers. It's in the pick of being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. This was an absolute disastrous policy, as were many in the IRA, needs to be gotten rid of, and it will work itself out as to what, who's going to pick what. But that's up to the American public. That's up to vehicle competition.
Couple headlines that caught my attention. South China Morning Post, and I know China you're constantly watching what's going on there.
Yeah.
BYD, that's the major electric vehicle maker, to sell the C-Line SUV in Europe in 2025 and sign extra tariffs are no big deal. Yeah. And today, BYD, that's the Chinese electric vehicle company, announced another plant in Hungary.
Right.
So what about the idea of, okay, if you're pulling back on EVs here, you're leaving it to China abroad?
And I think that's a fair consideration. That said, this does not have to be on the back of the American taxpayers, not to the tune of $390 billion. Look at who's purchasing those vehicles. I mean, hell, the average income now, median income for Americans is $55,000, $60,000. You're getting tax credits for single individuals or $150,000, married up to $300,000. Those individuals can afford these already.
Okay.
They don't need tax breaks from taxpayers.
Last Trump administration, it was going to repeal and replace Obamacare right off the bat. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
Rewrite the tax code. They did that.
Yeah.
You guys are going to try to rewrite the tax code.
Yeah.
Why should the American public believe that this isn't going to suffer the same fate as Obamacare?
Well, I don't think it will, which would be suffer the same fate.
That meaning that you guys will be that Republicans will be able to go forward with tax reform. Repealing Obamacare failed in 2017 is my point. That's where it started off.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the TCJA, what was done in 2017, it really saw its benefits in 2020, 2022. Those were the important things that gave American businesses reliability, security of moving towards the future. We really just want to codify it, make it permanent law. These things don't phase out. They helped American business, small, medium, large businesses tremendously. It's something that we need to put into permanency for the American public.
Let me leave you with this. You are a congressman, of course. You're also a doctor by trade.
I am.
And you saw the news today on RFK Jr.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction? What would you say to the American public as a doctor and as a Republican member of the United States Congress?
I've been a practicing surgeon for 35 years. Our American system is broken, and it gets worse and worse and worse with every single facet of American medicine taking off in wrong directions. It's okay for a disruptor to come in. I look forward to working with him. Obviously, I've been doing this for a long time. I know where all the details lie. Okay. It'd be very interesting to see as he moves forward.
He's a disruptor, in your word, and that's the word that has been thrown out a little bit. He's a lawyer.
A good disruptor. I think a good one, not a bad one.
He's a lawyer. What would you say to folks who say, wait a minute, he's a lawyer, he's an environmental activist, this is health and human services.
Sure.
I'll leave it to him.
Sure, yeah, what it takes is a leader to put strong people around them. They don't have to be necessarily subject matter experts. They don't have to. They have to present a vision and let the people who know the subjects really do the hard work moving forward.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman Greg Murphy from North Carolina. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. See you again soon. All right. Meantime, the last remaining question of last week's election is how big the majority Republicans will have in the House of Representatives. Right now, DDHQ has called 219 seats for the GOP and 212 for the Democrats. Now, that leaves 4 races still uncalled at this moment. like this tight race in California's 45th congressional district. Republican incumbent Michelle Steele is ahead of the Democrat Derek Tran by only, would you look at that, 349 votes. Although that, moving over to the upper chamber decision desk, HQ is now calling Pennsylvania's Senate race. Republican David McCormick is projected to defeat the Democratic Senator Bob Casey. The longtime Democratic senator from Pennsylvania believes there are still more votes to count. Now, with Republicans flipping the Pennsylvania Senate, they now hold 53 seats in the Senate. Look who's here. Look who's back. The man who must not sleep. He's the man behind the numbers, Scott Trainer, Data Science Director at DDHQ. All right, let's go interactive here to the wall if we can. And I want to start over in the House because, my gosh, look at what's going on in this race. 349 votes out there in California. Michelle Steele, the incumbent. What's going on?
And we still think there's tens of thousands of votes to be counted. 8 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be watching as those votes roll in. We think Derek Tran will take the lead tonight. We also think it'll be a couple more days before we know, because Michelle Steele may have some votes out there still.
I think you told me you wanted to go to CA 13, right?
Yes.
What's going on there?
So this is another close one. We think this one's going to lean towards Duarte. We still needed to see some more votes out of Merced County. Could go back and forth, but this one should be callable in the next day or so.
All right, give me a second here to click out and go over to, yes, we're talking about Alaska. And the race there. What's going on there, Trainer?
This is my favorite one.
Okay.
Ranked choice.
We don't get to talk about Alaska a lot.
Yeah, we don't get to. This is ranked choice voting. Mary Peltoa in there, 3 points behind. But ranked choice voting, they counted a little bit differently. So we get to do some very fancy math and wait for the state of Alaska to tell us exactly where this is going to shake out. Because as you can see, there's a few candidates down there, and Alaska just does it a little differently.
218 to win the House. You think Republicans eventually have?
I think they have about 221.
221. Okay, wow, thin margin. Let me go now over to the Senate, and let's talk about PA real quick. As I mentioned, you guys were the first to call the White House, the first to call the House, and you waited a bit on Pennsylvania. You were cautious. Explain why.
Well, because Pennsylvania...
Were you cautious, or... No, I guess it was the right thing to do, right?
It was cautious. The right thing to do is the way to put it, right? Pennsylvania had about 120,000 votes out. McCormick had a 40,000 vote lead. What we were waiting to see is, as those votes came in, was there enough for Casey to come back? As of today, we got official word from all the counties in the state. There's not enough votes left. They're still going to count. That margin's going to get a little bit lower. Okay. But we're safe to project that McCormick's going to win.
How many outstanding votes, you think?
About 70 to 80,000.
70 to 80,000, and it's 24,000, give or take.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The man behind the numbers, Scott Trainer. DDHQ, you're almost there.
Almost there.
Almost there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. My gosh, this scene up on Capitol Hill today. Senator Thom Tillis goes after one of his own colleagues, the Republican Rand Paul, for holding the disaster relief bill from North Carolina, in his words, hostage.
You've got to respond to the motion. I've made a motion to pass your bill.
Order in the Senate.
I'm focused on getting North Carolina back on track and not playing a game on this Senate floor.
And that is just some of it. We go live from the halls of the Capitol with the latest. Plus, Elon Musk already taking action as he prepares to oversee the Department of Government Efficiency. And RFK Jr. on a mission, he says, to make America healthy again. So what could that look like? Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is the center of politics. We're back here on the Hill in 4.
You know, I've asked for a unanimous consent. He either objects or he doesn't object.
Does the senator from Kentucky yield?
I thought he did, Mr. President.
I've made a motion.
And I've reserved the right to object to that motion.
Does the senator from North Carolina object to the modification?
I've subsequently asked the chair if the gentleman from Kentucky would yield to a request.
I've made a motion to pass your bill.
Order.
I'm focused on getting North Carolina back on track and not playing a game on this Senate floor. I'm going to object to this, Mr. President, in a minute because it's a game.
That heated exchange taking place on the Senate floor earlier today between two Republicans, Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. The senator from North Carolina objecting there to his colleague for blocking a unanimous consent vote, meaning basically just to allow it to go through, to refill the now depleted Small Business Administration's disaster relief program that would help hurricane victims. Up to Capitol Hill now, our Joe Khalil live there for us this evening. Joe, there were several minutes of the back and forth there. Explain to us What happened, why Rand Paul objected, and what Tom Tillis is trying to get done.
Yeah, and significantly more heated than I think we've ever seen Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina. This bill that he's trying to push forward, as you say, through unanimous consent, is effectively disaster relief for storm victims in North Carolina and in other places, replenishing the Small Business Administration, which has run out of money to try to help those victims. You can do this with just a very easy, simple process, unanimous consent. Rand Paul is objecting, saying, okay, I'll support this, but I'm adding an amendment to it. So we're going to pay for this by taking $800 million from the Department of Energy that goes toward green climate initiatives. We're taking that money away and putting it behind this. Senator Paul knows, and the reason that Tillis was so angry is that there are many Democrats who will no longer vote for this because of that amendment. It's what you call a poison pill that almost guarantees the bill is going to fail. So Tillis is saying, Senator Paul, I agree with you on the point you're trying to make about spending. We should have money to pay for this, but right now is not the point. It's not the time to make the point, and you need to get this money to victims ASAP. That's why he was so heated. He feels like Senator Paul's making a political point right now with this disaster relief that will prevent his constituents from getting the help they need.
Our Joe Kay, live in the Capitol hallways for us once again this evening. Joe, thank you. Well, as the incoming Trump administration prepares to implement its border crackdown plan, the state of Tennessee could be front and center. Tennessee is one of at least 15 states seeing an increase in the footprint of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Agua. After disappearing 2 years ago, Tren de Agua is back in every major Tennessee city. And in addition to other states, the state's Bureau of Investigation's director says they are running human trafficking operations and have a pathway to more violence.
They are very violent. This is a group that was created in gangs in Venezuela, in the prisons in Venezuela, and they are here, and they're in numbers here.
Joining me now is the Republican congressman from the state of Tennessee, Tim Burchett. Congressman, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. As always, appreciate it. I want to get to what's happening. Really, a couple stories in your community, Tren de Agua, but also you're from Knoxville in eastern Tennessee. Was battered by the storms. And I wonder, Congressman, who you side with, having just listened to Tom Tillis and Rand Paul. Tom Tillis, get us the money, let's go, let's do this, we need it. Rand Paul basically saying, okay, we need to pay for it.
Yeah, well, we're borrowing every dollar we send, every time we send a dollar overseas. So I understand Rand Paul's thought process, $35 trillion in debt, and every 100 days we add another $1 trillion. We're not doing ourselves any favor. And if we give that money to the federal government, as we've seen in the past, we don't know if it's going to get where it needs to go, as some of the FEMA money, actually over $1 billion, went to illegals. So I would like to see, sometimes you go a little slower, you get there a little faster. The charity organizations are doing the Lord's work up there, Samaritan's Purse and several of the other ones. I was talking to a colleague of mine, Jeremy Faison, who's a state rep up there. His church in Tennessee has access to a helicopter, and they'd been taking supplies to a community in North Carolina that is yet to see a FEMA person or trailer. You know, they get in these Walmart parking lots and they do sign-ups, and then they go stay in a $300 a night motel. And then they claim they're doing all this work. We've got to get control of this thing. You know, the Red Cross gets a considerable amount of money, but we haven't seen a lot of their activity up there. So I would like to call for an auditing of all this and see where this money's going, because if it's not going where it needs to be, then maybe FEMA just needs to be a flow through for money going to groups like Samaritan's Purse.
All right. Tell me about Tren de Agua, Congressman. What have you seen? I played the soundbite there of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. What are you seeing in your community right now? And what, if anything, has the incoming administration, the Trump administration, told you that they might do about it?
Well, this is completely a product of our wide open borders. 14 million people have come over in the last 4 years. Of course, these are criminal elements that come in. They prey upon their own people through these cartels. I think they're trying to get in as fast as they can because they know as soon as Trump comes in, that wall's going to go up. Dave Roush, head of the TBI, he's a personal friend of mine, and he is an excellent law enforcement officer. And I think they're going to see their hands are going to become untied under Trump. They're going to go after these criminal elements, and they're going to stop them. And, yeah, they're there. They're in all the major cities in Tennessee, and that includes Knoxville, where I grew up, and Chattanooga and Nashville and Memphis and all those things. They've been over there for quite some time. They're coming into our area. I would dare say they're not going to mess with the good old boys. They're probably being mostly in our inner cities and areas like that, and that's where they're going to do a lot of damage to folks that have already been. You don't see these gangs much out in the country. That's just not done. You don't see it as you would. They've got their own problems with fentanyl and other areas, but you'll see them. They're in human trafficking, and then they'll start pushing the gangs out, and then you'll see gang warfare. That's the genesis and the ending of them. They usually get into gang warfare, and then they get bogged down in that, and whoever wins that takes over the whole operation. So it is a bad situation. We need to take the gloves off of law enforcement and let them go after them.
Congressman Burchett, we got to leave it there. I know you're on the run. Thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
You got it. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. Are Lunchables. Yes, Lunchables officially off the menu in school cafeterias. What they are now doing to prepare for the Trump administration. Parents, have you heard about this one? And we speak to a member of Congress about what he thinks of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's mission to cut down on government waste. Also, don't forget to download the NewsNation app for more on all the big stories and to watch us anytime, anywhere. The Hill here on NewsNation. Back in a few. All right, welcome back to The Hill. Live look right now, Mar-a-Lago, West Palm Beach, Florida, where Donald Trump is expected to speak. We are now being told in about an hour and a half's time, 8 o'clock Eastern, there is an America First Policy Institute gala. That's basically the group of a lot of Trump alums that have been putting some of his policy initiatives into place. They're gathering at Mar-a-Lago tonight, and Trump, we are learning, will speak at that event. It also comes as another appointment was made this hour. The former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins, just announced by the president-elect to be the nominee for the Veterans Affairs Secretary. Collins is a veteran himself. Well, President-elect Trump's cabinet is forming fast, you could say. The latest addition is the one-time presidential candidate himself, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is tapped to head the Department of Health and Human Services. Our Kelly Meyer here with us with the latest reaction. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, Blake. Well, this is something that we've seen the two kind of inching towards and talking about, kind of vying for this spot. So he was ready with a list of things that he wants to do when he gets in there. So we have the list. It's MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. So it's getting in and gutting the entire department at the FDA, ban pesticides and genetically modified crops, also re-examine vaccine mandates and bans. So that's something that he's known for a lot, as well as talking about food chemicals and additives, so cracking down on that as well.
What's the lobbying effort going to be like?
So that's what we're going to see. A lot of these major food companies that already say these foods are regulated and safe are going to come in, and they're already working with lawmakers to kind of block him from getting confirmed. In addition to his words on vaccines, it might be a little difficult to get him through the Senate.
A lot of big pharma companies today on the corner of Wall and Broad in the red with this announcement. Kelly Meyer, live for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so RFK Jr. could officially get his chance to, as Kelly noted, make America healthy again. That's the slogan. One proposal that he has made is changing the food that we feed our children.
I'll get processed food out of school lunch immediately. About half the school lunch program goes to processed food. We're creating diabetes problem in our kids by giving them food that's poison, and I'm going to stop that.
Now, Kennedy may have already scored a win potentially on that front. Kraft Heinz is removing Lunchables, those pre-packed meal kits that a lot of our kids eat. They're removing them from schools nationwide just 1 year after they started the program for it. Joining us now, NewsNation national correspondent Elizabeth Pran. Hello, Elizabeth. What's going on here?
Hey, Blake. Yeah, what a big shift, right? So a year ago, they introduced the pizza. They had the turkey and cheddar. We're all familiar with it, right? We grew up on Lunchables. These were engineered with the National School Lunch Program. And you may be wondering why. Just to begin with, it was a bottom line, right? To reduce costs. And now they're being removed. They're saying it's because of demand. But you will talk to activists who say, not so fast, right? There was a huge outcry when these were introduced because activists said, look at what's inside these. You can see high levels of lead, cadmium, phthalates. I mean, these were all in the product, and activists were saying, these are making our kids sick. You and I know they've been around for decades, right? We ate them as kids. And if you look at how much they're getting consumed just in 2017, there was more than $1 billion worth of sales. But I spoke with one author and activist who says, listen, this is just the beginning. Here she is.
This is a huge moment in history where Kraft decided to remove them. Not only did they find lead, but they found cadmium and they found phthalates. And those phthalates actually, what they do is they cause endocrine disrupting problems in developing kids. And so this is affecting their hormones. It's affecting their fertility. It's the reasons why you see so many young adults, women particularly, get their periods earlier and earlier.
I mean, you talked about timing, Blake. Look at the news we learned just a couple hours ago with Robert Kennedy. I mean, he blames chemicals. He talks about additives in the food. And as you mentioned, he's really a big proponent for alternative therapies. So peptide therapies, prevention. He talks about hyperbaric treatment, stem cell transplants, all of the things that we can do to essentially, as Kelly said, make America healthy again. We've heard him talk about fluoride in the water. He said next up, Blake, is removing some of those chemicals like red dye in cereals. And as you have said, he said, if you do work for the FDA, it's time to start packing. Blake, back to you.
Yep. Support and opposition for all and a lot of this, I guess I should say. Elizabeth Pran, live with us this evening. Elizabeth, thank you. All right, come on in. Congressman Jake Auchincloss. He is a Democrat from the state of Massachusetts, joins us live once again here on the Hill. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Let's start here with RFK Jr. One of your colleagues, Jared Polis, came out today and was supportive of this. Where are you, Congressman, tonight on this announcement from the president-elect?
RFK is a quack and a conspiracist, and he has no place near the levers of health and human services. He goes out there and he talks about, oh, we need to eat healthier food and get more sunshine and sleep better and exercise, and nobody disagrees with that. Of course we do. And those social determinants of health are critical. What he obscures is the fact that he substitutes science in place of his own opinions and his own quack theories. And our biomedical enterprise in this country is built on randomized, double-blind trials that ensure both the safety and efficacy of new medicines and of foods. And RFK is a threat to the trust that Americans can place in what they're putting into their bodies.
Let me ask you about another nomination from the president-elect, Pete Hegseth, to run the Department of Defense. Pete Hegseth, Congressman, went to Princeton. He went to Harvard. He's a veteran. As I remind our viewers all the time when you're on this show, our viewers here on NewsNation or those listening to us on SiriusXM, you went to Harvard, you went to MIT, you are a veteran. I see you smiling there because not much, I mean, look, the resumes there are similar. And I wonder, Congressman, if you can identify with the pick that President-elect Trump made.
No, because he's unqualified to be the Secretary of Defense.
How so?
What he's being installed to do is to say yes and to supplicate himself to the will of the White House. Because in Trump's first administration, his entire national security cabinet stood up for the country and for the Constitution over his diktats. He fired them, and they then disavowed him as commander-in-chief and all endorsed Kamala Harris because they thought he was unfit to lead. He does not want to make that mistake again. He wants yes men around him. So I'm actually not that interested in the character of Hegseth because he's not going to actually have control over the levers of power there. This is clearly going to be run by the White House.
You probably see a bunch of stuff as a member of Congress that blows your mind, Congressman. We see it all the time. Right? My gosh, how does that happen? And Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are trying to take some of that on with the Department of Government Efficiency. One of the things, Congressman, that they're looking at is the concept of zero-based budgeting, which is the idea that you basically start from scratch, right? And then you build a budget from there. I talked about your profile. I left out that you were once a council member in Newton, Massachusetts for about half a decade. And I went into the budget of Newton, Massachusetts. I see you smiling there from way back when, and you know where I'm going. Because Newton, Mass talked about zero-based budgeting. And so, Congressman, if it was good enough when you were on the council there as a councilman in Massachusetts, why is it not good enough for Elon Musk and for Vivek Ramaswamy to essentially try to do the same thing here in Washington?
First of all, kudos on the journalistic sleuthing. I'm in favor of zero-based budgeting. As you said, I practice it as a city councilor. I advocated it for as a city councilor. And everybody wants to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government. Everybody wants to cut red tape where it's inhibiting us from building things or procuring things or outpacing the Chinese Navy, for example, as Mike Gallagher talked about in the Wall Street Journal today. Yeah. So I'm all on board. Here's the challenge, though. Elon Musk talked about cutting $2 trillion of annual spending. Now, as a matter of arithmetic, not as a matter of politics, that means that he is cutting Medicare spending. So you have a combination of Elon Musk, who's out there trying to cut Medicare. You have RFK Jr., who's in charge of Medicare. And my message to those over 65 is, you better watch your Medicare benefits, and Democrats are going to be the ones in Washington fighting to protect those Medicare benefits.
Don't we have to do something with Medicare? You and I are almost the same age. Our kids are almost the same age. Don't we have to do something about that, or else, because benefits are going to be pennies on the dollar at some point?
What we have to do is prevent neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, prevent diabetes, prevent the diseases that are costing hundreds of billions of dollars every year and that are ultimately going to be what bankrupts Medicare, both the traditional and Medicare Advantage programs. You can't do that if you can't have safety and efficacy trials under the FDA, because Robert F. Kennedy is undermining the science. You can't do that if you've got someone like him running CMS, which is a complicated bureaucracy that is not fit to purpose for someone who is a conspiracist. And you definitely can't do that if you've got Elon Musk taking an axe to spending indiscriminately. This requires grown-ups at the table doing this work. And I'm in favor of zero-based budgeting. I'm in favor of cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, but they have to do it thoughtfully. And Elon Musk's tweets does not indicate someone who's being thoughtful about this.
All right, Congressman, I could talk to you all night, but we're running up against some time here, and I got to leave it there. Jake Auchincloss, Democrat from Massachusetts, thanks for being with us, as always, here on The Hill. Catch you soon.
You will.
You got it. You as well. Other side of the break. The full panel, Donald Trump's cabinet starting to take shape. More picks coming in today, more picks to come. Full panel on the other side. Stay with us here on The Hill.
Remarkable women from across the country. 125 trailblazers will be honored with a chance to win $25,000 for the nonprofit of their choice. Nominations open through December 20th. Go to NewsNationNow.com to enter a remarkable woman today.
I call it the dream team. I'm really super impressed. We have Elon Musk. We have a good friend of mine, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's incredibly talented. I love all these. I've actually been super impressed with all the picks so far.
All right, so that's the billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman praising President-elect Trump on his appointments to date. Ackman was especially complimentary of Elon Musk and the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency.
If you have to think of a guy who's made more consequential impact on society, on everything from the electric car to space to now Neuralink, AI, he's I would say the most important figure of our time in the non-political sphere. And now we have the benefit of all of his talents, working alongside the president. I mean, it's an incredible home run.
Full panel here with me now. Roma Daravi is the former White House Deputy Director of Strategic Communications. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. Tiffany Smiley, former Republican Senate candidate in the state of Washington. And Chris Hahn, former senior aide to Senator Chuck Schumer, NewsNation political contributor. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Nice to have you in.
Yes.
Elon, revolutionary figure. You take any issue with what Bill Ackman says there?
I mean, he named it Doge because it's a joke, right? The whole thing, everything's a joke to these guys. Okay, go ahead. You're going to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget every year?
What if he's only 10% successful and it's a couple $100 billion? Would that be worth it?
I believe that there's a lot of waste and inefficiency in the government. If you could find real waste and inefficiency in the government, cut it out, great. If you're going to be taking a big sledgehammer to the federal government, you're going to meet a lot of resistance. You're not going to be very successful. But you find good stuff, You'll be cheered. That's what elections
Well, under
are for.
Joe Biden, this agency wouldn't work. You know, you put a career politician in charge of it and nothing would happen. I think it's brilliant. It's good for our country. It's our best and our brightest, and that's exactly what we need to fix this country going forward. Donald Trump is smart. He's a businessman. He's efficient. He's effective, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to deliver for the American people.
Not real money.
You're sorry. You're just stuck on the name. It's funny.
Let me just say this. This is a ship. This isn't a spaceship. This isn't X. This is a government bureaucracy. You take a sledgehammer to it because he's bright. You're affecting people's lives, and an institution, you're going to get pushback. So he can be as bright as he wants. Secondly, I've said this to you before, he has a huge conflict of interest. Huge. Let's say it together. Huge conflict of interest. He cannot cut agencies that regulate him, that he has contracts with. So is he going to step away, or is he going to not involve himself in that? That agency can't do it.
Whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, I just watched him send the world's biggest rocket up to outer space, send it right back down, and land it. And so I wonder...
what does that have to do with
the guy who wants to spend trillions of dollars to colonize Mars is going to be an efficient...
Look, the American people spoke already. Thank you. The American people spoke. And this is the kind of innovation that they want. Yes. The D.C. swamp is a sleepy swamp. The government moves so slowly. I worked at an agency, at the Small Business Administration, and then I worked in the White House for 3 years. Some of those computers look like they're the first ones that were ever made. So is the entire process that they're working on.
And the bureaucrats that are
why would we not think that the most successful, richest man in the
but I don't think he's going to
bring in some new
computers. Let me move on.
Have at it.
I first met Roma at the White House when I was covering the White House. Lots of pics rolling in. You know the Trump administration. You know how it all works. I asked you during the break, what do you think's coming next? You gave the appropriate response. You laughed in my face. What do you think's coming next?
Well, look, I think President Trump did the smart thing. He picked out his national security cabinet first because the world is at war and we need true leadership. We saw him already have 80-plus conversations with world leaders, which, by the way, he was not calling them. They are calling him. So that speaks volumes. Next up is definitely the economy. So I would expect Treasury Secretary to come out soon. I would expect small business, commerce. Those are things that the American people are dying to get. And that's, again, why Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, these entrepreneurs, are getting so much highlight right now.
A tell is that maybe Treasury Secretary is coming next when Trump came out today and said, oh, it's not going to be Jamie Dimon. Because you know that the conversations are happening. What's your big takeaway so far, Tiffany?
You know, I am thrilled about RFK Jr. Being nominated. You know, he's a Democrat. And I think it shows the big tent movement that we have, that Donald Trump will take political outsiders, he'll take Democrats, people from all different walks of life to fix this country and get it on the right track. And I think it's amazing. I mean, just real quick, I want to say that 40% of school-age children and adolescents have at least one chronic illness. That's unacceptable in this country.
I am also thrilled that RFK Jr. is his pick for a very different reason, because there's midterm elections in 2 years, and that guy's weird. And I am looking forward to see what he does.
Call him weird all
Look,
crazy.
He gets the picks he wants. Except for Matt Gaetz and people who are going to be a danger to this country, that he doesn't get. RFK Jr., he's probably going to get confirmed. Okay, he's got some ideas that are outside of the mainstream of science, and he doesn't have a background to actually do the work. And so what he's going to propose might make America healthier, or it might make America sicker. But whatever it is, it's going to upend things. Elections in 2 years.
Let me ask you this, Scott, because I had a Republican congressman who is a doctor by trade sitting in this very seat at the top of the show. He called RFK Jr. a disruptor. What would you say?
They're all disruptors, but yes, he is a disruptor. But what I worry about, on top of what you said, Chris, is will he listen to the independent scientific data and evidence, or will he rely on his opinion? For example, he's an anti-vaxxer. He's a conspiracy theorist, right? Okay, now you're going to put him in head of Health and Human Services, and will he listen to the independent scientists who push back on him?
I have to respectfully disagree with what you said about that. People say the same thing about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was the president that delivered a vaccine during a global pandemic in record time by utilizing public-private partnership that we had never seen before.
He lied about
in
COVID
history.
for years.
So, look, I think that
the American public. What do you mean?
What Tiffany said is
very important. The chronically ill children, 40% are chronically ill. That was 3 years ago, by the way, that the CDC said that. By 2025, the CDC, Joe Biden's CDC, 8 in 10 children are chronically ill. We have to figure out why. America is not healthy. You look at Japan, you look at all of these other countries. It's embarrassing.
He basically told us, if you elect me president, RFK Jr. is going to have a position to do this stuff. And
he did.
And he's giving it to him. Okay. Game on.
You own it.
Assuming there's elections in 2 years, I'm very excited.
I'll give you the last word
you fix it
before we run.
Yeah, so I just want to say real quick, the Democrats love to throw their hands in the sky and say that RFK Jr. is crazy, right? But it's all just it's a deflection.
I know him.
Hold on, let her finish.
The corporate influence and big money. That's all the Democrats do. They use it as a deflection. To cover.
Yeah, I hope he gets the corporate interest out of the Health and Human Services. I hope he does that, but I don't think that's what he's going to do.
He's ready to do investigations. We need to find out why our kids are sick and stop poisoning them.
Fantastic.
I should let you know, we had to skip over a second story. We were supposed to have 2.
We can go back to it. Let's just go
about a guy saying the government's out to get me. I got it.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Leland Vitter, host of On Balance. On the other side of the break, a lot of news to get to today. Leland joins us. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Live look at Mar-a-Lago right now, where later this evening, Donald Trump will be giving his very first remarks on camera since really winning the presidency and that election night speech. Leland Vitter, host of On Balance, joins me live. There are so many storylines, Leland. I mean, every single day, picks and all that. We started the show off. One of the things we talked about in Florida, there's an open Senate seat there. Rick Scott is now saying, you know what? Laura Trump should be the one to get it.
The sucking up by Rick Scott to Donald Trump seems to know no bounds.
He tried to become the Senate Majority Leader.
He tried to become the Senate Majority Leader. He promised Donald Trump, I will do anything and everything you want in order to become the Senate Majority Leader. It's interesting. Donald Trump's picks